Welcome back, history students. All right, today we are wrapping up the Gilded Age. I don't have that much more to cover before we get to the midterm exam study guide, which I will be posting soon on Brightspace, and then you will have time to study that before the midterm exam is posted in Brightspace. Last video, we discussed the Gilded Age politics. And we talked about the Democratic and the Republican Party and a little bit of the histories of those two parties. So just to recap, in the Gilded Age, which is about 1877 to 1900, politics was boring in the US because the two major political parties were very similar. And I went over this in the last video. The leadership of both parties were very similar. They tended to be wealthy white men. Both parties supported putting protective tariffs on imported goods to protect American industry. Both parties were not very concerned with the issues of the poor, especially the working class poor and farmers. Both parties favored employers' rights over the rights of the laborers. And Congress was split between the two parties, meaning not a lot of laws got passed. So politics in the Gilded Age was described often by historians as being very boring. Not a lot got done. Even laws that were passed were pretty weak, not that efficient. However, in the presidential election of 1896, we start to see a change in the boring politics of the Gilded Age. The Democratic and the Republican parties begin to become different. In the election of 1896, William Jennings Bryan supported the ideas of the Populist Party, which we talked about. He adopted the free silver idea. The Republican Party opposed the free silver idea, and they supported the gold standard. And I went over that in the last video. That issue really started to divide the Democratic and Republican parties. And those two parties have really never come back together since. They've been very different parties ever since the Gilded Age. Now, McKinley won the election. The gold standard idea won out. And at the end of the Gilded Age, the U.S. is left with two parties that are becoming very different. At the end of the Gilded Age, the Democratic Party became known as the party of personal freedom. Now remember, at this point, many Democrats are from the South. There are a lot of white male voters who supported the Democratic Party. Remember, the Republican Party is still viewed as Lincoln's party, as a Northern party. So a lot of Southern voters who were angry about the Civil War and didn't like Lincoln, they still identified with the Democratic Party. So at that point, Democrats were still largely a party of the South. That's where a lot of their support was. A lot of those voters did not like all of the Republican Reconstruction laws that we talked about in this class. They didn't like the 14th and 15th Amendments. They didn't like the Civil Rights Act of 1866. They opposed these laws. And so they became the party of personal freedom because they wanted more freedom from government interference and strict laws, like the laws that were passed that they didn't approve of in the Reconstruction era. The Republican Party, which at this point is still remembered as Lincoln's party, became the party of morality, the party of morals. They believed that the U.S. government should enforce moral laws, like the laws to oppose the Black Codes that we talked about in the last chapter. The Civil Rights Act, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. Those were laws to protect African Americans from discrimination. Those are viewed as moral laws, really. Now, another type of moral law that the Republicans tended to favor is something called blue laws. Blue laws are laws that enforce morality in our society. They're sometimes referred to as Sunday blue laws. So the Republican Party in the Gilded Age and after that would have been the party that supported more of the blue laws. So blue laws are where the government tries to enforce morality into society. So I'll give you some examples of some blue laws. Some of the blue laws have to do with the day of Sunday, which is related to the Christian faith. In the Christian faith, Sunday is a day of worship. And so in the years after the Gilded Age, the Republican Party tended to favor Sunday blue laws, which dictated that certain businesses be closed on Sunday, or that alcohol or other things that Christians back then might have viewed as immoral could not be sold on Sunday. So a Sunday blue law could be that stores in a town or a state are not allowed to sell alcohol on Sunday. Or it could be that a town rule or town law that says that businesses must be closed on Sunday because Sunday is supposed to be a day of rest and a day of worship, especially in the Christian faith. So those are moral laws, or Sunday blue laws. We still have blue laws in America today. There are town laws that are blue laws. There are state laws that are blue laws. So, for example, you might live in a state where businesses are not allowed to sell alcohol on Sunday. That's a blue law. That's a law enforcing a moral standard. There are towns in the U.S. today that forbid the sale of alcohol through their laws. I used to live in a town that banned the sale of alcohol, but a few years ago, the voters voted to end those laws. So now alcohol is allowed to be sold there. When I was in high school in the 80s, I used to run rides down the shore in a town called Ocean City, New Jersey, which is next to Atlantic City, New Jersey, pretty close. Ocean City, New Jersey is known as a dry town. The town laws dictate that no alcohol is allowed to be sold in the town limits of, so no restaurant is allowed to serve alcohol. You're not allowed to have a bar open in Ocean City, New Jersey. That's a blue law. Now, when I worked down there for the kiddie rides, and I worked in 86, was my first year, I was 16. And there was a Sunday blue law back then that said all businesses on the boardwalk have to be closed on Sunday, except restaurants, and I think movie theaters were allowed to be open. That's it. But the rides were closed. The stores were closed. The only thing you could do in Ocean City, New Jersey on Sunday, back before 86, was go to the beach or go to the movies or go out to eat, and that was it. Well, as a 16-year-old, I thought that was awesome because all my friends that worked at the amusement park on the boardwalk had Sunday off. So all my friends went to the beach on Sunday or hung out on Sunday because we all had the same day off. In 1987, which was my second year working down the shore in the summer, the blue laws changed. They allowed everything to be open on Sunday, and that ruined it for all the teenagers who worked because now we all had different days off. So we had to schedule our days off, and it wasn't as much fun for us. But the reason that they changed the laws was, Ocean City, New Jersey has a very short season. So the businesses complained that they were losing precious money by not getting any business every Sunday in the summer. And so eventually the town agreed, and they agreed to open up the town. So that's a blue law. Now, to this day, Ocean City, New Jersey is a dry town. You cannot sell alcohol. There are no bars. So there are still blue laws around in our country today. Now, I know this is a history class, but I'm going to jump a little bit to today and the two parties. In modern times, the Republican and Democratic parties have changed. It's almost flipped. Today we think of the Democratic Party as getting more support in the North, and the Republican Party getting more support in the South. And a lot of the reason why this flip happened was in the mid-1900s, when we have the rise of the civil rights movement. White Southerners who opposed civil rights and opposed desegregation began to transition away from the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party began to support civil rights laws and desegregation of things like schools. The Republican Party, still somewhat remaining the party of morality, became more conservative in the mid-1900s and gained more support from Southern voters. And so I would say the Democratic and Republican parties today are much different than they were even at the end of the Gilded Age. And again, a lot of that has to do with the civil rights movement, but there's also economic reasons. There is not one reason why the parties flipped. Now, the other thing I want to mention is I'm talking in very broad generalities. Not all Republicans support blue laws. Not all Republicans are conservative or extremely conservative, and not all Democrats are extremely liberal. There are people who have many complex beliefs. Hard to talk about political parties in generalities. So that's the last topic that I'm covering. So at the end of the Gilded Age, the Democratic and Republican parties no longer were similar, and this is the beginning of the two parties establishing different platforms. All right, so that's where I'll leave this video. Look for your study guide. It's going to be posted very soon. So I will see you in the videos that come up after the midterm exam.